Welcome to Super Talk, the podcast that scratches your superhero itch. Just two suburban dads nerding out over superhero stuff on the small screen and the big. Buckle up, people. Enjoy the ride. All right, Professor, like a gentleman. All right. Let's get this party started. Episode 121. In 3.
Welcome to Super Talk, the weekly podcast dedicated to news and reviews of comic book media on the big and small screen. This is episode number 121. I'm your host, Brian Professor Pettis, and with me, as always, my illustrious co-host, Titanium Tony Estrella. Titanium, we're back.
Yeah, another episode where I can butcher some really tough names and fumble through some actors and names, and we'll see. Not a lot going on this week.
Well, I mean, let's get to the point at hand. I mean, a lot of people are probably wondering why the heck the two of us are here by ourselves.
Yeah, that's true.
So last week we teased a big special guest joining our show this week. Brandon Davis from comicbook.com and Phase Zero was scheduled to join us this week. Unfortunately, he had a lot of family obligations this week and had to regrettably cancel on us. Felt really bad about it. Said, hey, guys.
Allegedly.
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. You know, we all got a lot going on this time of year. But
yeah, he said he was just super busy. I don't know about family obligations, but he said he was super busy.
All week, he said. Yeah, I'm just super busy all week.
Yeah.
So, you know, Brandon, we hope to have you on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to reschedule. Please consider rescheduling. Just give me a date and time, and we'll make time.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll get him on for sure. I mean,
hopefully, allegedly,
we'd love to have him for sure. But sorry about that, guys. You're stuck with us like you are every week. We'll want to thank our listeners that bring the show to you. Those are our patrons. Patreon.com/supertalk is how you become a member. If you want to support the show directly, just go to patreon.com/supertalk and become a patron of the show. It really isn't that difficult, and you can help us out a lot. That would be great. Let's get into the review section, and I want to spend the review section this week talking about the Blue Beetle movie. I'm going to make an announcement here that I have yet to see this movie.
You didn't see it?
No.
You haven't seen it?
I am totally snake bit for seeing this movie. So, as you know, you went and saw it last Thursday night. Yep. I was away for the weekend.
With Greg Vire came with me. Gregonator the Generator.
Yeah. So I was away for the weekend. I was unable to. I was at kind of a little mini family vacation. I was out of town at our house in Maryland and had a lot of stuff going on, and I could not see the movie this weekend. I did come back Sunday night, and when Brandon was unable to do the show Sunday night, I'm like, hey, I'll go see the movie when I get home on Sunday. Well, I was exhausted. I mean, it was a long weekend. I was tired. I fell asleep. I couldn't go to the movie.
Come on. I'll play like a champion.
I was like, I'll go last night.
Play like a champion.
And literally bought my ticket, went to the theater, and they had a power outage.
Oh, you're shitting me.
No. I literally walked up, opened the door, sign on the door, said, we're closed due to a power outage. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Wow. So at the time, it was like there wasn't a show within driving distance, within a reasonable amount of time that I could get to somewhere else. And I would have had to wait like 2 hours and 25 minutes till the next show, at some,
Conspiracy theory.
I know.
No wonder Blue Beetle's not doing well.
I know.
God damn it.
I was like,
conspiracy theory.
I was like, man, it's like there's
just conveniently lost power.
Yeah,
bullshit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, I have not yet seen the movie. But the good news is Titanium has seen the movie, and I can't wait to ask him all kinds of questions about it. I want to hear his opinion. So this is going to be a Titanium movie review, and we get to hear anything and everything that he has to say about this film. So let's jump into it. I mean, obviously we'll start by saying spoiler warning. If you have not yet seen Blue Beetle, be careful, be forewarned. Titanium's going to get into some things that happen in the movie and some post-credit stuff that you, if you don't want to hear about it, tune away and come back after you've seen the movie. But let's hear about what you thought about the movie.
So I think it's doing well review-wise on Rotten Tomatoes.
It has done. The reviews are pretty good.
I think the audience has given it a better score than what the reviewers are. I think it's at a 77%. Not that
That's
I
usually
pay attention.
normal,
Yeah,
right?
I don't pay attention that much to it, but a lot of people use that as a barometer of how a movie is doing. I know it's not making a whole lot of money, so it's kind of struggling in the box office.
You know what? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think the budget for this movie was somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 to $125 million for this movie, which for a big budget film in the theater is low.
Yeah.
Really low. I mean, what did they spend on
The Flash?
The
Twice
Flash
that.
was like, no, it was close to 300. Wasn't
Yeah,
it?
well, plus marketing, yeah.
250 plus.
Yeah.
And that just totally bombed in the theater. Again, we've talked about this before. This movie originally was supposed to be a Disney Plus movie along with Batgirl, which Batgirl got completely canceled. Blue Beetle not only got the green light to move forward, but was moved to the theater, and they invested even more money into it to get the special effects to the level that a theater-based movie is going to have. So, look, this movie is going to make back its money. I have no doubt about that. And in some ways, it's a success just because it is an origin story and introducing a character into the DCU. So, yeah, look, early reviews are decent. Box office returns are decent. They're not great. They're decent. But I want to know what you thought about the film.
Shockingly good.
I asked you after this weekend when you saw the movie. I said, "How was the movie?" You said, "Surprisingly good."
Yeah, like I had low expectations, obviously coming off of some of the movies that we've seen in the past or recently here, and it was surprisingly good. It was your basic origin story, your typical kind of cookie cutter superhero movie, and I know it's been explained like that, and I know some people are like, it's the cookie cutter superhero movie, but it's entertaining.
Yeah.
It's really entertaining.
That's the most important part, right?
It really is.
So, first question. The actors that were cast in the roles that they were playing, and I know, Jaime Reyes and his entire extended family, his dad and his uncle and his aunt and his cousins and everything. There's lots of family members associated, and I'm not that concerned about the family members necessarily, but how did you like the role of Jaime Reyes and the individual that was cast in that role?
Shiloh Mendes.
Yeah, Mendes, yes.
Shiloh Mendes. He is a superstar.
Yeah.
He was probably the highlight of the film for me. Besides the smoke show, his girlfriend in the movie.
the Brazilian.
Drop dead gorgeous. I could not keep my eyes off of her. And I was nudging Greg like, smoke show. Yeah. She's beautiful. But Shiloh is definitely the star of this movie, and he was fantastic. I think he plays Jaime Reyes, the lead, the Blue Beetle. And really good.
And he's from Cobra Kai,
yeah,
right?
Cobra
so
Kai,
I know my son Charlie was mentioning, I want to see it because the guy from Cobra Kai's in it.
Yeah.
So he was really excited that this guy got cast in the role. And again, when I found out that this is who was going to be playing Jaime Reyes, my only disappointment was I would have liked them to skew a little bit younger on the role. Like Jaime Reyes is more of Miles Morales age, kind of like a
little bit younger
14, 15-year-old kid
versus
Jaime Reyes in this movie has already graduated college and he's a young adult.
College.
He's a young adult. So that was
Gotham Law, by the way. He has a sweatshirt. Yeah. He went to Gotham Law.
Yeah.
That was kind of cool.
Yeah, so that was my only criticism of who they cast in the role. And that being said, sounds like he did a very good job.
Great job. The family itself and the family dynamic of this movie really highlights his relationship with his family.
Well, it's the culture,
and
right?
The whole culture thing, and that was a home run. It really did make this movie different from other cookie cutter.
And what's the name of the city? Is it like Surfside City or something like that?
Panama. Paloma. It's like a made-up city.
Well, and it's modeled after Miami. Right?
Of course.
It's like a beachside city with
a
very urban part of the city with lots of buildings, but it's very similar to Miami, Florida, right?
Palomar, Palomania,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
But yes, very dramatic. The special effects were amazing. One of my favorite parts of this, besides the family dynamic and Shiloh, who was phenomenal, is the comic book accurate superhero suit.
Yes.
Amazing.
I mean, when we first saw the behind-the-scenes photos of the suit, we were like, okay, I'm excited. And then once they put the special effects behind it...
Only got better.
Yeah.
I mean, it really only got better. So,
all the powers that he has from the suit, including the... he turns his hands turn into like the sonic guns, and and he could make sword. And it is exactly what we saw from like Teen Titans
Young Justice.
Young Justice is exactly the same thing, right?
Really good. Yeah, there's a couple of Easter eggs in there making reference to Superman, Batman. I think also the Flash. They make reference to the Flash and those cities. And
that's I think a big point to keep in mind is that this movie was originally written in the Snyderverse. The DCEU was originally written to be part of that, and so the allusions to those other characters were
they're very vague,
right? But they were planned,
because
they wanted to introduce this character as part of the DCEU. Now James Gunn comes in, shakes everything up, basically. For all intents and purposes, is canceling the DCEUs, coming up with this new DCU, and Blue Beetle is the first character he has come out openly and said this character will be part of the DCU going forward. So
couldn't be happier about that,
right? While he's making allusions to other DC-based superheroes in the movie, we don't know which superheroes he's alluding to, right? And that's why they didn't have any cameos or anything else.
He cut those out,
right?
You could tell that there were some serious cameos, especially in there's two end credit scenes. One of them is actually very good. Like it was compelling. Like it moved the story kind of forward and gave you a look into the future. And the other one was just an homage to Spanish Mexican superheroes of the past. A cartoon, basically, the Red Cricket or something.
So suit, comic book accurate and awesome.
Yeah.
Special effects, really good.
Off the charts, yeah.
What'd you think of the story? I mean, the one criticism I've heard is that Susan Sarandon's version of Jessica Cord kind of like, not great.
I was so infatuated with Jenny Cord. No, wrong. I don't agree with that at all. I thought Susan Sarandon did great. She played a very focused corporate entity that was corrupt and very willing to step on anybody she could. And I thought the way they depicted her and the way they told her backstory of what she's done to get where she is, I thought was great. It's another thing. I thought the villain, Korak,
right?
Korak is the villain in this.
Kind of like an Iron Man, kind of an Iron Man type of villain.
Pulls some of the technology from the Blue Beetle Scarab into his technology.
Well, they combined really two villains from the comics for this movie. They got Korak, which is kind of like an Iron Man based kind of type of villain, and then there's OMAC, which it's an acronym. I can't remember what it stands for, but OMAC ends up becoming kind of an intelligent AI being at some point in time, and that's where he gets some of that technology from the Scarab and infuses it into the Korak machine. He becomes OMAC, and that's kind of what happens at the end of the movie there. But
he's kind of a heavy-handed bodyguard for the Cord, and so you don't really get a lot of backstory. You just get he's this ominous part android. He's got a mechanical leg and arm. So he's kind of like a part android kind of guy, and then they have a fight scene, and it's really cool. And then you kind of learn his backstory at the very end. And I thought it was great. This is the one time where I was like, okay, the villains in this are compelling. Like the villains, I thought Susan Sarandon, I was like going to be like, Susan Sarandon?
Right.
They should have put like a Gordon Gekko in there. But I thought she did a great job. And I thought they were very compelling and very ominous. And I was believing.
At some point in time, you mentioned this. So Jaime gets captured, and they're able to steal some of the technology from the Scarab to use for the Korak suit, the OMAC/Korak suit. And that kind of upgrades the Korak suit, and then they have this big battle, and he kind of eventually stops fighting the Scarab and becomes one with the Scarab and embraces his kind of...
they go into like a dream realm. He's a big spoiler, please. Spoiler. I don't even know if I want to tell you.
It's fine.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I want to hear
His father dies. gets killed. He has a heart attack during this attack on his house and stuff, and he ends up having a heart attack, and that is very emotional. The core of that family, he is the glue.
He's the patriarch.
He's the patriarch.
Right.
He's the core of that family. He's the glue that holds it together. And when he dies, it's very emotional. And the grandmother steps in and says, "It's not time to die. Not time to cry right now. We don't have time to cry or mourn. What we do is we need to get Jaime back, because that's when they take Jaime and they start using the technology to not only upgrade Korax, but also all of these suits that go into the back of people and integrate with their mind and their spinal cords."
Yeah, that's the OMAC project.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they're building that. So that's what was happening when they took him. And he goes into this dream realm because it's really pulling the energy from his suit and the scarab. And he sees his dad, and his dad gives him this, this kind of thing. This is what you were meant to be. This is it. And then this weird kind of touching of the Blue Beetle suit and him in this dream world, and they finally connect, become complete symbiote, a symbiote being. So they completely connect. So I thought that was really cool.
And that really fully unleashes the full potential, right, of the suit.
His relationship with the suit and the girl.
And Becky G was the voice of the AI in the suit. So
great.
Really good.
Oh yeah, it was great. I mean, we're kind of used to it because of Iron Man, we're used to
Friday or Jarvis.
Right? Yeah. I mean, and it was really cool. I mean, I'm going to say this, I think he's the next Iron Man, or could be the next Iron Man. I think he's that good of an actor. But
I do hope, I mean, as popular as Young Justice was on Netflix and then HBO Max, I think having a Teen Titans team in the DCU it would be really great. And you just think of the core characters that are part of the Teen Titans, right? Nightwing and Beast Boy and Robin and Cyborg and Blue Beetle. I mean, and Corey and Raven. I mean, I think it would just be great.
Yeah.
And hopefully, look, introducing Blue Beetle into the DCU to some aspect is great. I would like to understand where we might see him again. And that's kind of the other question I would ask you. So you feel very good about the character and about the power set and about the suit and special effects and everything else. At the end of the movie, did you feel comfortable that this is a character that we should and could see going forward in the DCU?
Yeah, absolutely. Because of the first end credit scene.
And it was really about where her father might be, right?
Correct. Yes.
So the original Blue Beetle in the comics, and the Ted Cord, is supposed to be dead in this movie. Her father, and all the technology that the family uses to help rescue Jaime is his technology.
Well, Jenny
kind of
Cord,
like Batman.
his daughter, goes to
his lair.
The lair, and they kind of base themselves in this lair to go get Jaime back. And they kind of, the cousin, George Lopez, he's the uncle. He's definitely comic relief, and he's hilarious in this. Probably one of the most ugliest human beings I've ever seen. He's not an attractive man, but he's very funny in this, and he does a great job. The grandmother was probably the most irritating for some reason, like her acting and her
over the top.
Not just over the top. It just seemed it wasn't believable.
Well,
it was very shallow.
And you and I were concerned about that when we saw the trailers, that there was a hokiness to some of the family, and we're like, it's going to get a little hokey.
But the sister and George Lopez, the uncle, their hokiness was funny and awesome.
Yeah.
But the grandmothers, for some reason, didn't resonate. It just seemed faked and really kind of forced. And
manufactured.
That was probably my biggest critique of the movie. My biggest problem with the movie was the whole grandmother.
Like at one point in time, she grabs some chain gun or something, and she's marching around shooting stuff.
They bring her into some kind of. She starts to have flashbacks of her revolutionary days, and she becomes this badass revolutionary. And they're like, "Grandma was a revolutionary." Blah blah blah. She's like, blah blah blah, blah, you're communist, and that kind of thing. And I was like, okay, that's
a little too
forced.
Much.
Yeah, it's a little too much. It was too much over the top, and I didn't like that part. But the sister's hilarious. She's very funny, And George Lopez is hysterical.
Yeah.
He's some kind of tech genius.
Yeah.
So he's a tech genius that builds all kinds of stuff, and he can figure stuff out in there.
So he's the one who helped them figure out all the technology. But this was all Ted Kord's technology as the first Blue Beetle, who knew about the Scarab, studied the Scarab, and had been trying to figure out the secrets behind the Scarab. But he was very much like a Batman type of character, as the Blue Beetle had a lot of technology and gadgets and things like that. But he's been gone for 20 years.
Yeah, not only had all this technology and things, but he really didn't have any superpowers.
Right.
So he was just like Batman.
Yeah.
You know. And he makes a reference to that.
But the first end credit scene was really about the fact of Jaime.
Well, when the uncle turns on all of his equipment and fires up his stuff, it sends a signal to him wherever he's at. It sends a signal to him, and he pipes back into his system. He says, whoever's there, if this is my daughter, Jenny, I'm alive. And if it's not, tell my daughter, Jenny, I'm alive. Tell her father is alive. And that was kind of leads you into
secret that he's still alive. And
he's still alive, which gives you a lead, a doorway into Blue Beetle 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, great. I mean, I'm going to see it this week. I'm sorry I haven't seen it yet, but I will see it this week, and I'm looking forward to it.
If you liked the first Shazam.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It was entertaining.
Yeah.
I think everybody liked it. You're going to like this.
Yeah.
I think it's just a little step above it, but it is, I would say, on par with the first Shazam.
Well, and you and I have said this. Look, and that's, I'll say the same thing about Shazam. Shazam / Captain Marvel, one of my favorite DC characters. Blue Beetle, one of my favorite DC characters, just because of the unique backstory and the powers and everything else. And I'm glad they brought this character in, and I would have been very sad to hear that this was a one and done and they're just moving on.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that James Gunn has said, look, this is a character that we can build upon and bring into the DCU. Now, looking at all the projects that James Gunn has announced for the next 3 or 4 years,
I don't see him in any of them.
I can't imagine where he's going to show up. So it may be several years before we see this character again, and unless things change. I mean, we don't know what he's marching. We just got I guess, like a 2-year window. And I think his first movie's not coming out until 2025, in July 2025. Yeah. So, who knows? A lot of people were saying that they could see this character interact with Peacemaker. They've interacted before. They've had run-ins before. And maybe that's somewhere that if Peacemaker Season 2 does make its way to HBO Max, that we may see.
I could see him in the Waller series, the Amanda Waller series that they're talking about.
Him being recruited by Amanda. And you and I were talking about with the potential post-credit scenes. I mentioned this to you last week. What if it's Amanda Waller kind of reaching out to him and trying to recruit him?
Super hoping that was it.
Yeah.
I was really hoping, but the second end credit scene was a cartoon, an homage to a old Spanish cartoon.
El Chapito or something like that.
Yeah, like the red cricket, or it was like something like that. So
that's the cucaracha.
That would be the cockroach. La cucaracha is the cockroach. But you know what? Kudos to this movie, man. It was really simple. You went in, you didn't have to have any background on comic book background, and it did a really good job of that.
Yeah.
It wasn't complicated. There was no time travel. There was no multiverse. There was no what timeline is this.
Yeah, it wasn't too crazy.
It wasn't complicated at all. It was very simple, regardless if it was cookie cutter or not. It was entertaining, and I'm telling you, the special effects and the comic book accurate of that suit really did it for me. I mean, it really landed home.
I think, I think they did.
And Shiloh was a fantastic actor.
They did a great job of really making it a true representation. And they did the Blue Beetle on Smallville back when that series was on the WB or whatever it was back in the day. And it was not well done just because the technology wasn't there yet quite to kind of represent what that character in that suit should be like. This, what I've seen, is off the charts accurate.
Really
right?
good.
Yeah.
Didn't they do like Aquaman in that too?
They did. They did a bunch of things in there. Yeah. Yeah.
That was cringeworthy.
All right. Well, that's Blue Beetle. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. I definitely can't wait to see it. So please go check that out. We'll be hopefully hearing more about the future of this character in the
DCU. I want to hear your
sure.
opinion on it for the next show. So
yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get into the news section. A lot of stuff that's been dropped this past week from industry insiders, Twitter scoopsters, lots of other things. So a lot of this that we're going to talk about is, look, take it with a grain of salt, like we always say, and just take it for what it is. There's nothing been officially announced yet, but these are a lot of people that have a very good track record of reporting on things that end up being true. And
can I also say one thing?
Yeah.
There's nothing coming out of the industry right now.
Right, because of the strikes.
Because of the strike, there's nothing coming out. So a lot of these people, A, have been either sitting on scoops that aren't that big that they're just waiting to kind of release, or B, they're kind of connecting the dots and trying to make educated guesses on what's happening because they have not, and this is their livelihood. I mean, just like ours.
Yeah.
Thank God we have real jobs.
Yeah.
But these people don't, and they have to have content, and they have to put these predictions out there.
And as you can imagine, there's a lot of people that work in these studios, whether they're writers or they're actors or they're producers, and they're all being told that they can't do anything right now. So they're all on hold too. So a lot of these internet scoopsters have relationships with people that are just sitting around doing nothing right now, kind of waiting for stuff to happen. And they want to maintain some momentum too, because the fact of the matter is, if we go through this extended delay and things don't happen at all, people will lose interest. People will start to just say, who cares?
Yeah.
And so they're trying to maintain some of that. So I think some of these leaks that are coming out are probably very calculated. And what I'm saying is that I wouldn't put it past certain industry insiders to get real scoops from the industry themselves, because they want people to stay interested.
Yeah.
And so I think there's some validity to a lot of these. And again, these are people that have good track records for reporting news. A day or two, like they'll tell us when a trailer's coming out 2 days before it comes out. Oh, they're right, usually.
Yeah.
So the first one is, there's a story that Marvel is working on a special Disney Plus special presentation. So we talked about this in our last show. Special presentations are those one shot, just like Werewolf by Night.
Yeah.
The one shot, it's an hour and a half long show, just a one-time thing, that they're putting together a special presentation called Witch's Road. And this is going to be referred to during the Agatha Coven of Chaos series. So we know that series has been shot.
Yeah.
We know that series has done filming. It's now in post-production. We don't know a release date. We don't know when we're going to see it, but we know that series is done filming.
Yeah.
And they have now put together a special presentation called Witch's Road, which is going to come out after Coven of Chaos. The Witch's Road will be referred to in Coven of Chaos. They'll do a special presentation after Coven of Chaos to talk about the Witch's Road. And the reason why this is important is it's going to tease the return of the Scarlet Witch. Now, the one caveat to this is, right now, Elizabeth Olsen is not under contract with Marvel. She does not have a contract. She's not contracted to be in any new projects or any new films with them. She's not signed for any reason.
How can you mention a character that's not under contract?
Which we'll get into in our topic of the week. But I do believe Elizabeth Olsen will be back. I do believe the Scarlet Witch will be back. And even if she's not under the contract, you can explain how she might come back in a special presentation. And it's really going to be about the occult. It's going to be about... So the Witch's Road in the comic books is very similar to the Duat, to the Shadow Realm, to the Mirror Dimension, to these alternate realms that only certain people have the ability to traverse.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And the Witch's Road is only people that are witches and warlocks are able to go there and able to navigate it. And the theory is that after the end of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, when she brought down Mount Wundagore and we saw the Red Flash...
The Temple of Cthon.
Right, that she ended up in the Witch's Road, and that's where she's trapped.
Got it.
And so this is going to be an explanation of what it is, who can be there, who goes there, what happens when you go there, and then allude to the fact that she may be there and may be coming back.
Wow.
There are theories out there. Some industry insiders are talking about that her return will coincide with Kang Dynasty, and she will be working with Kang and be helping Kang. And this may be a way of explaining how she comes back and how she is going to come back. So I think really cool. And there's a couple of news items here. We'll talk through this, but it really gets back to exactly what you and I were talking about last episode of how to kind of fix the MCU. So let's get into a couple of these other things. One of the industry insiders, Cosmic Circus, they report that He Who Remains, the version of Kang that we saw in Loki Season 1, will be coming back in Loki Season 2. We will see new scenes filmed with him in Loki Season 2. And that's huge because we thought that when he was killed at the end of Loki Season 1 that version of Kang was done. Mm-hmm. But he explained in that episode that time is circular. And that, you may kill me now, but we're just going to eventually come right back to where I am and where I was. And so this explains a lot, and really what he was trying to explain to us about the timeline, the multiverse, and the sacred timeline that he created, and all these other things. And I think that we may end up seeing Loki and Sylvie and the other characters of Loki Season 2 make their way back to that Citadel again and confront him, or at least talk to him and say, hey, I told you guys would be back. I predicted it.
That'd be cool.
So that'd be great to see his version of the character again. We also got some industry insider scoops on the fact that Marvel has been working on and was working on a Ghost Rider specific project for Disney Plus prior to the strike. So prior to the writer strike, prior to the actor strike, a Ghost Rider project was in the works. You and I have talked about this, Titanium. It's
we've
inevitable.
Heard several of that. Yeah, we've heard a Ghost Rider, some kind of project, either Johnny Blaze or other Ghost Rider character coming back in some way, shape, or form. And it's inevitable.
With Moon Knight, with Blade, with Black Knight.
Back,
we're talking about the occult. We just think it's the right direction that they're moving into. But the confirmation that they were working on this prior to the strikes is great. And that the rumor now is that they are working on a project for Disney Plus featuring Ghost Rider, and it's going to be both Johnny Blaze and Danny Ketch versions of the Ghost Rider. And Mephisto is supposed to be in this as well. And again, the rumors that he gets his, that the demon that possesses him, he gets from Mephisto, and the contract that he signs is Mephisto. And we heard the rumors that Sacha Baron Cohen is playing Mephisto in the Ironheart series, and this makes all the sense in the world to proliferate and cultivate that occult-based side of the MCU. Just makes a lot of sense.
Well, we heard the villain in Ironheart is the Red Hood, who has ties to Mephisto, and we heard allegedly Mephisto will be making an appearance in there for the first time.
Yeah.
So that right there could lead into Ghost Rider. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, and kind of the side note to this is the other side of this story is that Marvel is planning to use these special presentations to introduce new characters moving forward. Now, you and I alluded to this last episode, and we talked about our plan to fix the MCU, and I'm glad to hear that they're actually listening to our show and taking our ideas.
Allegedly.
It's fantastic. But we heard some talk in the industry that both Kevin Feige and Bob Iger have learned that the 6-episode Disney Plus episodic series were not working. They cost way too much money. They were a little too long in some aspects where there's a lot of filler content in these episodes. We just saw this with Secret Invasion.
Yeah.
The first couple episodes were really good. The last episode was incredibly disappointing, but there was some stuff in the middle that would just seem like kind of out of place. Filler, It just seemed like filler. And it cost $250 million to film a 6-episode series. It's like ridiculous.
Yeah.
And they're never going to recoup that money. So they've agreed that this is just not the formula moving forward, that we're going to go with these long extended series like what they're doing with Daredevil Born Again, these 18-episode series, which is fantastic, or they're going to do really short ones, 3 or 4 episode series is all you need.
Or just special presentations.
Or they're going to do special presentations, which is exactly what you and I suggested last week.
Which is the way to go.
use special presentations as a way to introduce new characters, tell the backstory, tell us who this character is, tell us why we should care, move on.
Yeah.
And we hear that they're planning these special presentations for Disney Plus specifically to introduce us to characters that we know are coming to the MCU, specifically characters like Nova.
Yes.
Silver Surfer.
Right.
Wonder Man.
Yeah.
The Sentry. So I do believe we're going to get a Sentry special presentation on Disney Plus before we see the Sentry character in the Thunderbolts movie.
I'm really looking forward to the Thunderbolts movie. I'm just hearing buzz about that, and that could be... I think that could revive the MCU.
I think Captain America 4 and the Thunderbolts are incredibly important.
And ambitious.
But they're incredibly important to the future of the MCU and especially the success of this phase of the MCU. Yeah. So you got to get those right.
Yeah.
Again, we talked about this last episode, Titanium. Team-based movies are what you should be investing your time and energy and money in when you're bringing theatrical releases. Yeah. And those two are team-based movies. You've got multiple actors playing multiple characters. They can share the screen. The burden is not on one of them to carry the load. I think that that's the way to go. And then,
do you think the success of the Thunderbolts in Captain America 4, do you think that will spark a Midnight Suns?
Potentially. I think their design behind the Midnight Suns concept or this occult / supernatural team in the MCU may be more driven by the Blade movie.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that is going to be...
That's going to be the catalyst.
That's going to be the catalyst for that.
Whether they go forward with that or not.
Yeah. I think that's more important. Look, we've already got Werewolf by Night and Moon Knight kind of in that bucket right now. Yeah. If we get a special presentation or a limited series on Ghost Rider, that would introduce that character to us. Then we have a Blade movie, which would kind of bring that together. I don't think those two movies have anything to do with that. But the success or failure of those movies may impact what they decide to do going forward. Yeah, for sure. But, I mean, the fact that they're just going to do these one-shot special presentations to introduce us to Nova, to introduce us to the Silver Surfer, to Wonder Man.
I think it's a home run.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to that, and I can't wait to hear about it. We know that Disney Plus Day and D23 are in September, planned for September right now. Until or unless the writer's strike is over and the actor's strike is over, we may not get anything. They may cancel the whole thing, just like they did with Comic-Con this year.
Yeah.
So, look, let's just hope that stuff gets resolved and by then, and then we'll get some real announcements. I think that might be the only time we'll get some real announcements about what's going on.
Greg Vire and I were talking about this. There's this huge gap that we haven't really seen yet because there's a lot of stuff already. There's already content either finished or almost finished that they could probably, once this writer's strike and everything is over, they could probably tap off and get it out there. But then there's going to be this huge gap of...
Yeah, we've already talked about that.
Yeah.
Deadpool...
Pushed back. Everything's going to be pushed back.
We've already got a delay between October and May of next year. Deadpool 3 is coming out in May next year right now. We know that they were actively filming that movie until the strikes occurred, and then they had to go on hiatus shortly, and they said, look, we can still hit our deadline if we don't have to wait more than 3 months, but after 3 months, we're going to be butting up against it, and we might have to push. And so let's not be shocked, people, when Deadpool gets pushed to July and Captain America 4 gets pushed to, September. It's just going to happen.
Right.
But let's hope it doesn't, because... And you and I mentioned this. I think that you're right. They do have enough content banked for Disney Plus that they could keep us satiated until that next theatrical release between the Marvels. So we know Loki Season 2 is coming out here very shortly in a month, right? Then we know we're getting the Marvels. And then there's nothing really planned until Echo comes out at the end of the year. They're going to drop that whole thing. But we talked about last episode. X-Men 97 could come out in January if they wanted to. What if Season 2 could come out right after that if they wanted to? Agatha Covenant of Chaos is in the books. They could bring that out as well. So they could give us enough content through that next theatrical release if they wanted to. They could keep us satisfied.
Yeah, I think Disney Plus also needs to start making original content, not just with Marvel, but with their other brands within the Disney Plus family.
Right now, it's only Star Wars.
It's only Star Wars
and Marvel.
And they're not even doing a good job of making that kind of content and different kind of variety of content. Netflix is eating their lunch. And remember, did you see the teaser trailer?
For the
Rebel Moon?
Rebel Moon, yeah.
Oh.
That's Zack Snyder's new project.
It's a 2-part project. It's going to drop. The first one's going to drop December 22nd. The second one next year in April. And that's going to eat everybody's lunch.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks absolutely amazing.
Yeah, so this is Zack Snyder's pet project that he signed up with Netflix to do. And the trailer was off the charts. And again...
Here's the thing. Disney had a shot at Rebel Moon. Zack Snyder said, I want to make this a Star Wars movie. And they were like, nah, it's really not in this. No, we're good. Thanks. It's going to kill at Netflix.
Yeah.
They're going to regret that. Anyway.
I think, and Netflix has continued to prove this point. Write great shows about great characters, put great actors in those roles, and we'll watch it.
No question.
And we've seen that, again, Amazon Prime's killed it with The Boys, and hopefully Gen V is going to be as good. I have no doubt in my mind that it's going to be as good.
Apple's up and coming. They've had some great shows.
Apple's done awesome, right?
Yeah.
They've done amazing. So, you and I ended up watching Hijack on Apple, and it was like compelling, you know? Yeah, so you're right. I mean, Disney Plus really needs to invest in original content. And I think, look, we talked about this at length in our last episode. They have a blueprint. There are 80 years worth of comic books that they can draw from, and the stories that were written there, and the crossovers, and the storylines that were built into those books. The blueprint is there. Just base a story on that.
Yeah,
that's all you need to do. Take characters that we love, put them in stories.
Stop changing them.
Right.
Stop trying to make them politically, socially correct or to these times. Just use those characters. They worked then, they'll work now.
Right.
And the stories are, stories king, right?
Yeah.
Stories are king.
Yeah. All right, last news item. So also another story out of the Marvel news is that Thor 5 is in development. So they are talking about Thor 5. Chris Hemsworth has come out publicly and said he is interested in playing the character again. He wants the right story. He was very disappointed in the way that Love and Thunder went and how it was received. He wants to kind of get back to the core of the character. Taika Waititi is in the running to direct Thor 5. Has not yet been signed to that, but he is probably the favorite to come back for that. I mean, look, he had a great one with Ragnarok, and he had a stinker with Love and Thunder. Yeah. And we know there's a lot of factors at play with Love and Thunder.
Yeah.
Right. But he's in the running to direct that. He has come out and said that his plans would be to have a villain. And you and I've talked about this with Love and Thunder. Look, Gore the God Butcher could have been much worse than he was portrayed in that movie.
Of course.
And they really just did not do him justice as a villain. But they did that end credit scene with Hercules, and Taika Waititi said, "Look, this next villain that's going to be in this movie is going to be a stronger villain than Hela was in Ragnarok."
Yeah. And
look, wouldn't it be great to pit Hercules against Thor and have this all-out battle between the gods? And I mean, it would just be great. And I think that they could and should do this movie. And we haven't heard any official announcement about it, but we know it's in the works at least. And look, I love Chris Hemsworth. I think he has played that character so well across so many different films. He is absolutely one of my favorite characters, and Chris has done a great job portraying him on screen, regardless of the writing and the storyline that he was forced to be part of. Some of my favorite moments in Marvel history have to do with him in that character. So, anyway, we'll see where it goes with that. I mean,
I hope that's true. My gut feeling is it's not. It's all fluff and hearsay. Just like, and I hope this is true. The next Doctor Strange is in the works. I hope that's true as well.
Well, I mean, they almost too much of an allusion to what the next movie would or could be for him at the end. That end credit scene was just like him and Clea going off and saving the Dark Dimension from an incursion. Leads right into what they're doing with Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars and everything else. And so it just makes sense that that's going to be coming out sometime in the next 3 years. We'll see.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, let's talk about our topic of the week this week, brought to us by our friends over at Studio GG Studios, home of the Man Band, Corn on the Cob, and...
You gotta check out the website, man.
It's on Facebook, though.
It's on Facebook. Check out his Facebook, Studio GG Studios Facebook. He ran into some bass players from some like classic rock band and was jamming out with them and at the RV park. I mean, it's really wild stuff. Yeah, it's really good. You got to go check out Studio GG Studios. We always put a link in the show. Go check them out on Facebook.
I'd love to see it. I mean, Goat's a character, man.
Yeah.
So, and we'll be spending some time with some Studio G folks down in Nashville.
Yeah, we're going to Nashville for Labor Day. Brandon Davis, if you're watching this, I know you're from Nashville. DM us. We'll buy you a beer somewhere down there. We're going to be there for the Tennessee UVA game, spending some time and boot kicking and beer drinking and I don't know, microphone licking. We'll see.
We'll figure it out. All right. Well, our topic of the week this week is the proposed reboot of the MCU during Secret Wars, and so this is a story that's gained a lot of traction here over the last couple of weeks. And a lot of industry insiders are kind of covering this and looking at this as Kevin Feige's grand plan to reboot the MCU during Secret Wars, and I tell you what. This goes back to several months ago when you and I were talking about the Flash movie and how it was an opportunity for DC to use the Flash movie and the Flashpoint storyline as a way to kind of just restart the DC EU and just...
away from the Snyderverse.
Get rid of the Snyderverse or get rid of the actors that aren't working, like Ezra Miller, like Ben Affleck, who don't want to be there anymore, and all these others.
I think we both agreed at one point that it would be better just clean slate the whole thing.
And they could have done that.
Just get rid of
everybody. They could have had him come back in time and it'd be a different actor. And we have different actors playing all the other characters, right. And it would have we'd have figured it out.
Right.
They didn't do that. And partially because before that movie was released, obviously James Gunn came on board, took it over, and said, I am like hard rebooting this damn thing, right? Yeah. We're going full slate, we're starting over. Yeah. And so the Flash movie wasn't necessarily what they needed to do the reboot. Yeah. It was more of this is just a crossing over point. But Secret Wars, I think, is and will be an opportunity for Marvel to really do a very, I'll say, soft reboot of the MCU. And what I mean by that is right now, if we look at all of these characters that they have ownership and rights to right now, they have all of the Avengers characters that Marvel owns and manages today. All of those characters that they brought over from Fox, including the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. They have the Hulk character that they finally have now retained rights from Universal to now manage and own that character as well. They're all being played by different actors and actresses. Heck, even the X-Men universe had two different groups of actors and actresses playing those characters over two different franchises in Fox. We had multiple franchises for the Fantastic Four. The second one we really don't want to talk about because it was so bad. But
really bad.
The story is we know that many of these characters or these actors playing those characters will be in Deadpool 3. We've got confirmation from some of them, themselves saying they're going to be in that movie. We've also heard all the rumors of many of them coming back to portray their characters in Deadpool 3, and we know that Deadpool 3 is really going to kind of be like a kind of a cross off the Fox universe, thing and bring it into the MCU. But the storyline now being that Marvel's looking at Secret Wars as a way to kind of soft reboot all of these franchises into a single universe. And right now, if you think about it, we have multiple universe. We not only have a multiverse, which is even incredibly more complex right now. We have how many different versions of Kang we'll be talking about over the next few years. But the storyline of Secret Wars gives them the opportunity to do this, and that we have these incursions happening, these collisions between different universes. And ultimately results in the destruction of the entire multiverse and the creation of a single battle world where characters kind of come together onto a single world and fight for the future of the universe. And the end result of that is the recreation of the multiverse and the recreation of a singular Earth, right? Which is Earth 616, or like the primary universe that we deal with in the comic books. in the second iteration of Secret Wars, we had two universes in popular comic books happening at the time. We had the main 616 version of the comic books that was historically accurate, had been going on for years, and Marvel created a new run of comic books in the late 90s, early 2000s called the Ultimate Universe. So we had Ultimate Avengers, Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate, there was an ultimate version of each one of these. And that was in a completely different universe. And Secret Wars was a collision between those universes. And then at the end of it, they created a singular world where only one version of each one of those characters was retained. And that was the version that was going to be moving forward in the comics, right?
The ultimate timeline, yeah.
The
sacred timeline.
Well, yeah, the one timeline, right? So they brought all these different characters together, so that you had different versions of Mr. Fantastic, you have different versions of Thor, you had all kinds of crazy, you had the Thor Corps, it was insane. But they brought it all together, and at the end of the day, there were only one version of these characters that were going to move forward. And I think that this is a great opportunity for Marvel to do this. One, it provides them with the opportunity to say goodbye to some of those actors that have played these characters in a really cool way. And actors like Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Hemsworth and Chris Evans and Patrick Stewart and, Hugh Jackman and all these, they could be in Secret Wars and play their characters again. And we know what iteration and what version of that character they are. We know where they came from. We know their history. But then we can also say goodbye to them in that. Because they're probably not going to come back. They're probably not going to see them again.
No.
Nor would we want to.
Yeah.
But you can ultimately then take, let's say I'll take the new iteration of some of these characters. And I want to say new, but I want to say kind of like the younger iteration, right? So if you think a lot of the characters that they have introduced to us or that they are introducing to us here now going forward, the ones they want to keep, they can. They can say, look, we like Letitia Wright as the Black Panther. We like Letitia Wright as, Shuri, and we want to keep her. Fantastic. She's a young actress. She did very well. We want to keep her around. Okay, great. Let's keep her. We like to keep Sebastian Stan. We want to keep Anthony Mackie. Well, fantastic. You can. But the other ones we're going to kind of let go. And then what a great opportunity. And just think about this. I don't know that this is happening. But just think about this, that they have an opportunity in this movie that when they bring this battle world together, that maybe we have multiple versions of Wolverine. Maybe we have multiple versions of Cyclops. Maybe we're introducing a new version of the X-Men. And these are younger.
With the old, yeah.
With the old ones that we know.
Yeah.
But when we have new versions of the same characters that are younger actors and actresses playing those characters, and these are the ones that are going to carry that forward. And then ultimately, when the end of the Secret Wars saga, which is going to be now 2 movies, is ended, we create a singular universe where all these characters exist. The Fantastic Four exist, the X-Men exist, the Avengers exist, and all the villains, corresponding villains, cross there as well. But they all exist in one world, and they all know of each other. They're all aware of each other. And it was just because of the circumstance of this event called Secret Wars, right? And I think that that's a great opportunity for Marvel to just say, look, we know as great as Robert Downey Jr. was, he's not going to continue to play Tony Stark Iron Man into his 70s. It's just not going to happen.
No, he's kind of aged out.
Well, yeah, I mean, he could still do it now, but how much longer could he really do it, right? And Chris Evans has come forth and said, look, I really don't want to play this character anymore. I would, but I really don't want to. This is not something I want to continue on. So bring in a younger Captain America. Bring in a new Captain America, right? And look, I like Mark Ruffalo. I think he's great. But he's not a young spring chicken in it either. No. I mean, you need to have a younger Bruce Banner and a younger Hulk, right? Yeah. So I think...
new Scarlet Witch. The opportunity is there for sure. I completely agree with you. I think it is an opportunity for them to reset and also introduce perhaps a franchise that could, after Secret War, run for the next 5 or 6 years, which would be the X-Men. They could run just X-Men and offshoots and different characters from the X-Men.
There's a million stories they could do with the
different
X-Men.
characters for the next 5 years, and not even do the Avengers, not even touch on the Avengers,
or do one every 3 years or 2 years,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, and maybe sprinkle in a
right.
comic book
and there
character.
are rumors that Phase 7 of Marvel is going to be the mutant saga, and they're really going to be focusing on the X-Men and the mutants, and which
Fantastic Four.
Nothing make me happier than that, right?
Huge fan of the X-Men. You are.
Right.
Yep.
But I do think that this is a great opportunity for them to bring in new characters, to bring in new actors and actresses playing these characters that we know, that can go and bring these franchises forward. I just think it's a great and it makes all the sense in the world. Look, the MCU has been around since 2010, right? I mean, it's been around for now 13 plus years, and these actors and actresses that have played these characters, even as great as some of these movies are, they've been doing it for a long time. A lot of them don't want to do it anymore, or they're getting really expensive.
Yeah.
So it's like you need to do some of this. And Secret Wars is a great opportunity for them to do this. We've talked about some of the villains they haven't introduced, or we believe Doctor Doom is going to be part of Secret Wars, and I don't know why he wouldn't, because he was such a huge part of that storyline in the second iteration of Secret Wars.
If it works, don't fix it.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
But nothing saying we won't see Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, but maybe Tom Holland's the guy that we're gonna keep around and move forward, and maybe that's when we bring the live action Miles Morales in during Secret Wars, and then he ends up being in New York with Spider-Man, when we come back, and then they can do a movie together. I mean, it just makes all the sense in the world, and I hope this is the direction they're moving in. I think this is the direction they're moving in right now. That movie, the first Secret Wars, is not scheduled to be out until 2027 right now, or is it 26?
26.
26, and then the next
27 schedule. Yeah.
And then the next one on 27. I think Secret Wars Part 1's 26, and the second one's 27.
Yeah.
I mean, so we've got 3 years before this is going to happen, and they got to start planning that. And look, this Marvel casting has been, for the most part, really, really good across the board in all instances. And I do firmly believe they're going to get casting right. And they're probably already thinking about this. What are we going to do? And we talked about this, even a year ago, that when Marvel retained the rights for the Fox characters, that there was something holding them back from using them. And we felt, or we alluded to the fact that there may be contractual obligations to the actors who are portraying those roles in the Fox universe.
Which we found out that were true through 2025. Right. There are.
Right.
So if those characters are to be used, they have to be used by those actors.
Anybody in the Fox universe that played those actors can still play those actors, but they can't be recast yet.
Correct. Right. And the studio gets paid. So yeah, I think after 2025, we're going to see a big change in that.
Right. And look, the timing works perfectly, right? Yeah. That's when we can recast those. So I'm looking forward to it. I think a reboot is not only necessary, but I think it's in their plans. And by then, we're talking a little over 3 years from now. Look, this is going to happen, and I'm looking forward to it. I think there's so many great stories that they can draw upon, and resetting and rebooting the universe that we see. And I think this multiverse saga is incredibly complex, and everything with all these Kangs and all this other stuff is just going to make everybody their head hurt. And it's just like, look, we're going to just collapse this all down, and we're going to be back into one singular Earth, and everything's going to be back the way it was.
I hope so. That's great. I like your theory, sir. Well, let's ring the bells, Professor. Great episode. Thank you, sir.
All right, that's it for us this week. Back next week for more Super Talk. To get in touch with us on social media, hit us up via email, supertalkpodcast@outlook.com, or @supertalkpod on Twitter. Until then, stay super, everyone.
And we out.
Thanks, YouTube.
Thank you.